trust your crypto assets to centralized exchanges that actively sell your private information and front run your trades? Would you like to buy and sell your assets without any middlemen, intermediaries, or robots? Do you like paying slippage, fees, and having the price go up as bots steal from you on low liquidity decentralized exchanges? The solution is nodemarket.io. Set your guaranteed buy or sell price. No middlemen, no slippage, no bots, ever. Buy or sell 1, 10, or even 10 million tokens, and you never have to worry. OTC trades are between you and the seller or buyer, guaranteed by audited smart contracts and no human middlemen. Nodemarket.io.
Dude,
I crushed
You're
it.
gonna get them all, dude. That was like 50 in a row, Nick. That's what I'm talking about. Get out of here.
Okay, so I know no one can see us. We have a special guest.
Before we do
he was
that,
hitchhiking. He was hitchhiking earlier. He was hitchhiking around the galaxy. We thought, listen, come on, fella, jump in the spaceship with us. So, let's bring him on. Some people might know him. I don't know if everybody knows who he is. We'll see.
We're gonna introduce him. Oh, so beautiful too,
my lord. Toufii,
Hey
what's going on, buddy?
Well, it's Halloween.
So.
I guess it is Halloween where you are, isn't it?
Yes.
So far ahead.
It's, from time perspective, yes, but it's not necessarily celebrated as much. I'm in South Korea, so
it's not a big holiday there.
It is Halloween, but it's not as big. It's not as big.
Probably not as big as Korean Thanksgiving.
Right. Korean Thanksgiving, and you've got it's probably one of the biggest is Korean Thanksgiving. Actually.
They love their Columbus.
Yes. How's it going, guys?
Toufii, what's going on, man? So Brandon and I, so here's what the whole crypto world seems to do that's in the AI space. We listen to what Toufii says on This Week in Hypercycle, and then for the next 5 or 6 days, everybody tries to read in between the lines as if someone's reading like something that came down from the Supreme Court. They're like, wait, he said may, and then here he said shall. That means, so we all try to distill what's going on. So, but then thankfully, we get you at least once a week. So bring us up to speed. What's going on? What's all the stuff that people are going to ask you anyway?
Well, it's what you're actually saying is absolutely correct, and I'm certainly not trying to be vague or inaccurate. It's more I'm actually trying to be more accurate by saying certain things that, to my knowledge, when I say to my knowledge, is because that's what I truly know. And if I say may, because I'm not 100% certain, but that goes without saying that if I were to tell you this is happening, then you know for sure this is happening, as opposed to like somebody who always tells you is happening, and then you have to build the may in your head, and you're like, I don't know when it's happening, when it's not. So I feel like from that perspective, it's building a little bit more trust with folks that they're talking to me. Now, of course, this makes my engineers really happy, but the rest of the world a little bit feeling okay. Well, we're not. This is not a logic of compound statement test. Can we actually get behind the scenes and get to the bottom of it? And of course we can. And for that reason, I felt that in between our talk, there's a lot of things that the community they're asking for, and I'm responding by providing certain talks with folks to enable them to ask a question to ours. For example, something that might become too apparent for us, and then we might gloss over it. But if someone else is asking that question, then it would be nice because maybe someone else is had that question in their head, but they didn't ask it. So, which would require, I mean, believe me, I'm not really trying to look, or I'm not trying to get busier, but so it's already 22 hours a day that I'm working, but it is something that it's extremely important, and I feel like this is the most beautiful thing that I've ever worked on in my life. And it is getting more and more beautiful every single day. The more I see phenomenal community members coming in, and I'm not sure if somebody with the name Kim, I don't know if I can I talk about that quick?
You can talk
beautiful thing?
about anything at all. We
Okay. This is super interesting. Somebody from your community that I did not know, never met in my life, and I feel privileged to keep partaking as much as I can, because I feel like every single time I meet folks from your community, there's something positive about their view to the world, and I'm not sure if that's how they gravitated to you, or it's a combination of uh, from causality to, but it's I was in Minneapolis and the sample, and then there's something that I wanted to keep it hush hush until it happens. Now, why do we keep things hush hush until they happen? For two reasons. One is sometimes they may not happen, so talk about them too early will end up losing credibility. Some other times is that, like, when you talk about them too early, then they might ruin the deal because they have a lot of NDAs and so on and so forth. Okay, so um, this specific instance, without speaking about the details, I'm going to tell you, it's a computing center about 100 miles from the airport, and I felt like, okay, touring them, this is great, because most of our customers, they need computing centers, and if I really care about my customers, I'll be the first to go check them out. I'll be the first to actually try them. I'll be the first to actually do those kind of things. So did not want to necessarily talk about it much, but then as I'm leaving the airport, the TSA gentleman comes to me, and literally I'm putting my stuff, and he's like, "Do you know hypercycle?" And I'm like, "What?"
No way. What? That's,
And he's like, "I'm asking you, question you, do you know hypercycle?" And I'm like, let's have a look. Is there stickers? And I'm like, yeah. And he's like, okay, well, now that you answered yes, I'm here to tell you that I know you. And I'm like, okay, well, how's that? And it's like, I've been watching you with Nick Black. I've been, following all of the stuff that you guys been working on. And I don't understand much of it, but I can tell when I look at people sincerity or not. And I feel like, okay, these guys got something great going. And anyway, it was a phenomenal thing that I've met him, and all the people in line, they were like, what's going on? Like, how do we, what's happening? It's like, you don't normally see somebody walking and then they start asking me um, are you famous? And I'm like, maybe in Korea, but I don't know in Minneapolis.
Korea.
So yeah, so it was beautiful, and regards to Kim if he's listening. But yes, so that's a crazy coincidence. Yeah, I mean, so good morning to all your audience here. It's evening. I know it's morning for you, and it's I know that you have people from around the world as well, but I think it's majority. It's morning, I guess.
So, in the morning or in the evening or wherever you are, the question we get most, you know it's coming.
Right.
When can we marry the tokens into the node licenses? And for anybody that's just tuning in, each
Mhm.
hypercycle node license requires 1024 hypercycle tokens in order to flip the on switch and
Right.
to participate in what is coming, which at first is beaconing or tilling, signaling to the network that you're here and you're ready for work. And then the compute phase, which will roll out sometime in 2024. We don't know exact date, but we think maybe March. And at that point, you will be processing transactions of between businesses, compute transactions, a variety of compute transactions all across the world. And that's what makes this kind of global brain. So
Right.
when can they take that step?
Okay. Well, I want to answer this question accurately, but at the same time, I need to uh, set the stage, and I apologize for those that they've heard it, but it's on May 8th, 2023 is when we had already communicated with everybody that the clock starts for like the 18 months for the delivery. Now, we all know we've kind of accelerated that by 6 months and a little bit more than 6 months. And that's due to phenomenal development team and a lot of the great things that we've been working on and accelerating things. So it is coming in the spring. Now, prior to that, when you said the AI compute, I assure you they're going to be from the demand side, AI compute already coming into this ecosystem before that. And that's going to send huge signal into the world, be like, holy shit, this is actually working. There's money flowing into the system, people that they're paying for AI without them knowing for AI. And I'm talking here, Nick, I'm talking about not couple users, couple 100 users, couple 100,000 users. I'm talking in the tens of millions. Okay. So without necessarily divulging a lot of the details, but that is going to happen before. So I'm not saying maybe, I'm saying it will happen before that date. Now, now that will happen before that date, it would require some customization, some custom work that is not letting the clients all do it on their own. There's like some work that needs to be done to kind of make it work ahead of time. And now I need to answer your question about when can people. So if you have already your tokens that they're vested, that's your question, right? The vested tokens.
Well, I'm referring more to just somebody shows up today, they buy a node license, they buy 1,024 tokens, a single license, 1,024 tokens. When can they marry those two suckers together?
Okay. So the very first, the second part, what I said is the second part first. The second part, when somebody buys the license, and the very first part said when they buy the token. Now, when they buy the license, for the longest time, it's been that they buy 512. From our perspective, they buy the entire 512 licenses, like you guys, distributors, and then themselves, they say, okay, well, let's sell all 512 to individually or in groups or whatnot. That is going to change very quickly, not changing, getting basically enhanced to actually deliver those. Like if you want to actually give each and every individual. That code has been in the audit for a couple of weeks, which we've mentioned in the last, and the audit came in, and we are in the very final stages to get the 10 out of 10 on that audit, and then push it out. Which means that is it likely going to be this week? I think it's very, very highly likely to be this week. It's probably 99.99% this week. Midweek, I'm not sure. So if it's going to be Wednesday, but this week is so that is one part. So then you bought it, you own it, you have it. What does it mean? If you have this thing, that means you can transfer it, you can gift it, you can do whatever you want to do with it. At that point, you can, if you want to take it and plug it into a computer on that date and marry it into the tokens, which is the very first question that you ask, the capabilities are there. And people, they did it in the hackathon, that they have very little knowledge. In fact, the vast majority of people showing up to the hackathon, they've never heard of hypercycle. And that was done. But that was done because we've had people there, so we don't necessarily in the hackathon like really looking after the actual audit because we're there, so it's not like we're pushing it out. But that audit is extremely important, that people can look at the audit report before they kind of take that thing. So we were not going to give it to the world. So that's why I really think 99.99% will be this week. So if you have that, you can transfer it, you can gift it, you can do whatever you want to do with it. If you own two, you can split them as well, whatnot. So that you don't really need anybody's help to do it. If you also have the tokens, then you might need some help if you were to actually plug them into the machine. But I think there's an extension to that question that you have asked, which is the ERC 1155, which is the added thing that you can do with that. So what is the 1155? If this is marriage that we're talking about, the ERC 1155 is more like the marriage certificate. So if I, can get married, that's great. A lot of us know how to get married, but how can we get the marriage certificate? That maybe we need to get that from City Hall, or do you get it? So here, this marriage certificate, what it can enable people is to actually see that ratio that is being built. It belongs to that certificate. So if you own this, you own that, then you own the certificate, which means that now you may want to transfer the certificate itself. You may want to split the certificate itself. And just by me saying that, now you can start thinking about the complexity of that, right? Because splitting it, because wait a second. So I've had 2 licenses and I married them, let's say, together, or I've had 512 and married them. But now the 512, the certificate itself can split, which means that what happens if there's divorce, can each and every one of those have their own things? And if the answer is yes, there's some complexity there, right? So in that complexity, even if it's solved in code, which you already have it solved in code, it is not advisable to kind of like give it out to the world as is. Oh yeah, it's solved in code, but you guys figure out how to use it or whatnot. That complexity needs to be resolved from usability perspective. The audits still have to go through, which means that complexity, it needs to be that complexity needs to be explained to the auditors. The auditors, I kid you not, many of the stuff that we do, the auditors, they feel like it's a little bit over their head. They're like, whoa, this isn't something that we're used to. We're used to just like look at simple smart contracts been done before, whatnot.
It's because you're in new territory too. I mean, you're doing things that nobody's done before. So even like
Correct.
our auditors, when we go through a smart contract audit, we're still having to explain little nuances even with our node with our OTC that they've never seen before. So you're doing things exponentially more than we're doing because you're trying to create this thing that's never been created in the whole universe. So I can
Correct.
imagine what you're going through a little bit.
Correct. So that ends up taking a lot of time, and by the time they go through all of that, then the subjectivity kicks in. So even when they understand it, then they start having to putting in the subjectivity, saying, well, the comments there in the explanation, or like the actual, you know how you have a code that has like is commented code that is not, and then they start saying like, well, this one is a little bit vague. Then you have to explain to them that no, it's not, or you have to kind of change it to make it a little bit more. So that process takes time. But to answer the next question, is the capability going to be there at the end of this week? And the answer is yes, which means that if you have those things, what you can get them going, but the certificate, it's like, yes, you can get married, but to receive that certificate from City Hall, you may want to wait a bit. Okay, so
I think that's a fair answer. And I mean, I think the community's kind of well aware that there's this in-between stage when you're releasing software, and that is, at least in the crypto space and the Web3 space, where you have a financial consideration and that audits are important. If only the people at Polkadot and Ethereum had done those kinds of things many years ago, there'd probably be an extra $1 billion floating around that didn't get hoovered up. But anyway, not to live in the past.
a lot more than $1 billion, because
Yeah.
there's always the echo of that and the ripple effect, and it's extremely important to handle things that they end up creating value with a lot of care. And I will never ever say that there's like 100% thing that is secure. I've been in cybersecurity all my life, and I know that there's certain level of security, and you want to always increase it. So it's yep. There's so many different things that can be done later on to have like bounties to increase it, to have all different methods that we get from the community, from our own engineers. They tell us about it, but it's a never-ending quest.
Toufii, we get a lot of questions. This is a good one that Beth brought up, and that's people that have extra licenses. They don't quite have the tokens to fill them. And so they're saying, okay, with these extra node licenses, can I utilize them somewhere? And when are those not a problem, actually, when are those programs likely to emerge in some form where people can participate?
All right, this is amazing question. You can have just a license, you can have just the tokens, and you can still participate. In fact, you can just like have the hardware, you can participate. So that is, in fact, that is the raison d'etre of HyperPG, is to glue things, because some people, they might have lots of electricity. How can they participate? We want to enable everyone with anything that they have, that they participate in, and be able to partake in that equation. So we know about lots of pools. If you have the tokens, that's great. Then right after that, the pools that they're coming, they are for the licenses. They are a lot less complex than the pools that they can be for hardware, because hardware comes in with there's a lot of work on that, because every time you jump from the digital world to the atoms world, the proof is not that easy. People could lie about their hardware or not, but if you have a license that you have, immutable proof, it's an irrefutable proof that you own that license, and that is why the second pool would be for licenses. To answer when that, I will hopefully next week I'll have the answer to that, to have the when, but that is coming, and you don't need to have everything to do it.
As a follow-up question to that, because I get this a lot too. So we will be able to pledge tokens to HyperPG. We will be able to pledge licenses to HyperPG. We will be able to pledge tokens married to licenses to HyperPG. Is that correct as well?
1155, basically, right?
Yes. So you'll be able to, so you know those 5 elements. So if somebody is an AI developer, they'll be able to pledge their code into it. So it's like
any of the beneficiaries can participate in HyperPG.
Correct.
So that also brings up the question of people say, okay, hyperpools. So HyperPG is one part. Hyperpools kind of a subset of HyperPG, and hyperpools pay in a different way. That's kind of a revenue sharing model versus HyperPG, which is like a fixed return model, like a government debt or buying bonds in some company, where you get an interest payment or a yield, versus hyperpools where you're going to participate in the revenue that's generated by hyperpools. Is that correct?
Yeah. So hyperpools is basically that ERC 1155. When you have, if you were to own the ERC 1155 that is coming out and everything under it, that means you own the tokens, you own the license, you own the hardware, you own the AI code, you own the locations, and you have that, there's that 1% that goes for HYPC. That's the only part perhaps that you don't own. But effectively, you don't have to have all of those. You can have any one of those to partake in it. When you do, what you actually receive in return is what's going under the ERC 1155. That's so remember, there's the pool, but there's also the direct thing. You're like, I don't want pool. I just want to go and get directly into like a certain structure. I believe in the servers that they have in Arizona, but I don't believe in the servers that they have in Alaska, for example. That's fine. Then you can go and take your licenses and plug them in Arizona yourself. It says like, here's somebody who's doing there. They contacted me, or they raised their hand. They're saying, we're building stuff in Arizona. We need lots of licenses. And I decided to go and do it myself. Or you can go into the pool. So the pools will likely be available even before the entire structure of the hypershare. So remember, we called hyperpool, and we were like, what are we going to call that token? So we're calling it hypershare, like the 1155, because it is using the ERC 1155 smart contract setup, because under that you can have 2 ERC20s. What are they for? They are to split that. Can I share my screen?
Yes, of course.
Oh, cool. Okay. Wait, slide. Screen. I didn't realize that I have so many 600 screens open. Wait a second. I don't know how that happened.
That's cool. So it sounds
I
like we're going to be able to.
I'll split it separately, put it on its own, and then now I can go and share screen.
So it sounds like we're going to be able to deliver the actual node license.
You know, that's the thing. Sometimes when you have a lot of RAM on one computer, you end up like utilizing it without paying attention.
If you were running on a hyper AI box, you'd probably be okay. So those things have some memory.
All right. So I've shared this before on some of the talks. You remember this one, right?
Mm-hmm. Yes.
This is under the ERC 1155, the hypershare. So if you own the entire thing, then everything goes to you. You don't really need to have all the split. But if, let's say you are an owner of ERC 1155, but you feel like you may appreciate having some partners on the rev share side or on the wealth, it gives you the ability out of the box. So it's kind of like buying like an entire business, and that it's kind of fully baked. So that's the intent of it. Now, if you think about it from that perspective, somebody who has many of those, are they going to go and reach out to every single license owner by themselves, every token holder by themselves, or are they going to reach out to the pools? Chances are they're going to reach out to the pools, and that's why the pools, they get created ahead of time. You see what I mean?
Yeah. This
The
is an
pools with
interesting
the tokens.
This is kind of an
I'm not
interesting,
sure if
not
you're
to,
talking,
not, I don't want to
I can't hear
interrupt
you.
too much, but this is an interesting one. So most people say there's two questions. What is the minimum amount of time you can pledge? And what Conan's asking is, what is the maximum amount of time someone could pledge? It's kind of an interesting thought
I
process.
hear you. Maybe I should stop.
Brandon, can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Okay.
Can you, yeah. I was wondering because I said something earlier. I didn't know if you could hear me either. Maybe you still can't hear. But that is an interesting question. Also, just to summarize a little bit what Toufii said earlier, I think what he was saying is we're going to be able to deliver the actual licenses probably this week, which is really good for us. But what he's also saying is don't marry your tokens yet until you know exactly what you're doing, until a dApp's created. He's saying you can do that, but you basically going to have to go in and write the code to be able to do so. So don't do that yet. So just continue to wait is what I'm getting out of that, just to summarize.
Now I can hear you.
Okay.
Apologies.
Toufii, a really interesting question popped up, and that was, you know, we hear people say, okay, what is the minimum length of time that you can engage with HyperPG and HyperPool? And we're thinking probably 24 months seems like a minimum time. At least that's the way it's been presented, 24, 30 months. What is
Right.
the maximum? Is there a long-term or a long duration program that people could say, here you go, off you go, sir?
Right. I think somebody said 6-10 years, which actually makes a lot of sense here. We don't necessarily want to put that hard limit because sometimes you know, things are built for longevity or whatnot. But if you were to calculate the fastest possible way where you can actually have your nodes to split from 1024 all the way down, the fastest possible way, that's going to take 5 years. The world is not perfect, which means it's unlikely to happen in 5 years. And we truly believe if people putting in expected effort, in 10 years they'll get them done. So therefore, it's probably going to be between 5 to 10 years. And what happens afterwards? A lot of people, they ask that question. Well, you know, at that point, you can expect that there's like, you know, 2 billion nodes around the world. Well, those 2 billion nodes, they can start gaining more and more credibility instead of like splitting. And remember, one single one of those nodes could be the entire Microsoft. That's a lot. It's not, it doesn't have to be just like one single computer. But there is also one important question or clarification that came internally from Tudor last night. Because we're calling it split, some people might start thinking, it's like, wait, split, is that like a security or whatnot? The reality of those licenses, there are already 1024. The time what's happening, it's more like giving them the ability to unlock, and that is what the split. That's why they cannot split beyond 1024. So they are already 1024, but it's the unlocking that it needs certain credibility or whatnot to kind of give them the ability to do that. So that's important for folks, that they would think that the license could be security. And when it comes to the ERC 1155, under that you have the W token and you have the R token. So far, we truly believe that the W token is going to be classified as security across the globe. So whoever is going to own that, chances are they need to If you want to provide that tokens, let's say you have an AI company and you feel like, I'm just going to get this 1155. It's already pretty much like a built-in business, got all of the ability to be connected to the whole AI world, whatnot. It's only $1 million. Everything else in the AI is going to cost me billions. It becomes a small cost of in the equation. And if you do that, chances are your W token is going to be classified as security. But the R token, arguably, it's just a revenue that you're gonna have to pay tax on. It's revenue share. That's all what it is. So how do you split, for example, revenue if you have like 5 people with equal amount? You just give them 20% of those each. You know, if you have 10 people, you have whatever amount of people. So that's why the actual R for revenue and the W for wealth. Wealth creation is known to be as security in most of the places in the world. So that's why if people they're going to issue that, chances are they have to register with whatever authority that they sell it in whatever location. So yeah, so that's basically the product of that marriage. Will have two. There would be one W1 that is R. And I think I've answered the question, but I went a little bit more than what the question is. But yeah.
No, that's good. I mean, the deeper we can go on these things, the better, because invariably all sorts of derivatives of all of these answers come up in conversation. This is a good one. I think I know the answer to it, but I don't want to step on anyone's toes. When a master node splits.
It's something, and I was about to respond to it, and then I realized it's probably inappropriate to make jokes. So I didn't say anything.
Oh when a master node splits, do all the licenses within the node split regardless of their reputation? Now, my gut answer is no, because it's no longer about a master node gaining the reputation for all of the individual nodes. Nodes that might be on a hyper AI box might be different than nodes that might be running on a MacBook, that might be different than nodes that are pledged to hyper PG. And all of those could be under the same original master node, but that wouldn't matter once they're split. Do I have that right?
So what you're saying is that the master node split. And
like if we took a master node and we split it into 20 different bundles of tokens, and they all went, or bundles of licenses, they went in different directions, they all gained their own reputations.
Correct.
But they're all their own entities.
But that moment that you split, everyone gets the same, that moment.
No, I'm saying does everyone split at the same time? Because you would have different nodes with different reputations, wouldn't you?
Well, remember there's two types of splits here. There's the initial split that we're splitting the licenses, right? So there's the 512 that we're going to split out into these bundles. And then after they split, they're basically on their own, just like Nick's saying. Nick's saying is what they're doing is they're going and gaining their own reputation. So just because the other 500 in the node are gaining reputation, the two that are on their own, they're getting their own. Yeah. So
correct. Yeah. So the actual, if you have 512 and those 512, let's say, in my mind, I thought that they actually belong to like the same machine currently, because all they're doing is like the proof of uptime and all of the stuff with the tilling, and that's why I felt that like you're splitting them, you do it all like in the same time. When you do it in the same time, they all inherit the same things because they were on the same machine. But if you had them on like two different machines or whatnot, then you already had them split. Then the answer is like no, they're each gonna have their own proof of uptime. If one turn off their machine for 24 hours, they're going to lose a lot than the one that has been on the entire time. Same as if they gain reputation, all of these things. But then if you take that all the way down to all 512, and they have 512 different ratio for uptime, different ratio for reputation, different ratio for proof computation, from that point onwards, that's what enables them to have the capability to split. And the beauty about this, Nick, is that this isn't saved and relied on some ledger somewhere. This is actually inside the node. The proof belongs to the node. You could have ledger who lists them and talk about them, but the node is the one that has all the proof, which means they're not dependent on any ledger at any given time. They don't depend on me. They don't depend on you. They don't depend on Brandon, and they shouldn't. If you own this thing and it depends on itself, that's a lot more solid than having to depend on a third party to say, oh, I have some whatever reputation. Because the moment you depend on a third party of something that is valuable to you, they're going to hold you hostage one way or another. And we've witnessed that in a lot of things in life.
That's, it's funny you say that, Toufii. That's one of the design considerations that we did when we were building Node Market, is how do we support the ecosystem as much as we can with tools for all of the participants with no third-party reliance.
Right.
And so that's why everything, not to the same like magnificent extent that you guys are doing, but everything that we do and everything that Brandon and his team do is get rid of the middleman, replace it with code.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And what you're doing is kind of like what you're doing for a human, we're trying to do it for the machines. So it's like, the machines, they can operate in 10 milliseconds. So they don't need to depend on a third party when they're talking to each other. And that's extremely important that is the case, because what you're doing does depend, for example, on the ledger, which is called whatever that ledger is. But that, from a human perspective, that ledger itself is decentralized, whatnot. So it's not like a third party that is some people that they might change their mind tomorrow, whatnot. It functions as a smart contract every single time, so it is fully decentralized, and that's very powerful. When you have something that is centralized and that people can change their mind, can whatever, even if you trust that they will not change their mind, given that they could change their mind, what if like someone put them under the gun? What if like they sell their business? What if they get hit by a truck and whoever inherit them, they change their mind, whatnot? So, it's risky. It's better the way you're doing it is the right way. You just build it in a way that is fully decentralized. It functions every single time that way. If it's going to function, that's how it's going to function. It's either 1 or 0.
A good question that we get, and this is from S Greenfield 4. What happens to the node reputation score when it splits? Do both nodes retain the reputation score before it's split? Now, my off-the-cuff answer is, well, those nodes, once you have a split, like a cellular division, maybe that's a way to think about it, and that one node becomes 2, and the 1,024 tokens are divided 512 in each new baby node. They then reset, as far as I understand, the reputation back to 1. Is that accurate?
Well, there's 2 actually. The 512, those they inherit. This is like a one-time opportunity that is happening to everybody, because like the proof of uptime is proof of uptime for each and every one of them, for example, right? Now, when it comes to start getting the reputation, each and every one of them, they need to get their own reputation, which comes in like a little bit after 6 months, and that is when what you have said is accurate. Each and every one of them, they have to gain their own reputation. You can't be like that. The great grandparent gained some whatever reputation in math, therefore I'm good in math. It's like that doesn't work like that. But if the actual what the proof of uptime could signify in this specific example, well, if great grandfather had the ability to have a vision and hearing and taste and be able to walk, then I'm gonna be able to walk. I've inherited those genes, type of thing. So they've proven that they can do it. It is something that pass on the actual inheritance, and I belong to that same machine because they belong to the same machine. Remember, that same machine is the proof of uptime.
But Toufii,
Yes.
In the situation, let's say we fast forward from the compute phase 9 months, 10 months in, and that one license is looking at its first division. Now, when it's gotten a rank of
That's when you
2,
reset.
yeah.
That's when it resets. So that if you were to go to that one license and you want to have that license to split down all the 1024, it actually automatically splits. You can't even not make it split. When it gets to the 2, the ratio that gets to 2, it splits. Even if it splits within that same machine, but it splits and it resets to 1. And every single one of them, when they get to 2, they split until they get to the point where there is nothing to split. They get to the bottom of it. And then that's when they start getting indefinitely that repetition, from 2 to 3, 4, 5, whatnot.
So I guess I have something that's a little bit off, a little bit different. And that is, I don't think a lot of people realize that unlike many other crypto asset projects, cryptocurrency projects, whether it's token, whatever, anywhere you look, the token has a value either to put money in people's pockets or to facilitate some weird utility function, but the tokens are not needed in a transaction. In the hypercycle ecosystem, the actual native token is necessary for yeah. Can you explain that a little bit? Because I don't think people realize how this is so much different than other projects, because you really do need the token.
Right. The 3-hour launch meeting that I had today in South Korea, which will be made public at some point in the near future, I'm not going to say who, but you know who, asked that specific question, and he said why he didn't actually ask the question. He asked more in confirmation his understanding of it, and that's why he was extremely excited about the hypercycle. The metaphor that we've used historically is that you have, if warehouse is your business and you want to ship products, and you have the HYPC is more like the UPS truck. If you have a lot of those UPS trucks, then you can put them to work. What can you put inside that UPS truck? Well, you can put US dollars. It doesn't have to be crypto only asset. You can put Bitcoin in it. You can put US dollars. You can put whatever things that you're putting into it. The difference is that if you were to put Bitcoin into it, then your hands off. You're like, it's Bitcoin. It can go around the world. Can keep going. But if you put US dollars into it, whoever you are, you want to stay standing there. So let's say you Federal Reserve, you need to maintain your ships and guns and whatnot. Otherwise, that may not necessarily sustain itself, right? So it's like, so that's basically what the HYPC is, a container. Now that container, because it has value, you could just send it empty to pay for something. I'm sending you the entire container here to do whatever you want to do with it. But at some point, that container, if it becomes like way too expensive, chances are you don't want to send the container. You send a fraction of that container or mini containers, or you send things inside it. And why is that so important, Nick and Brandon? If you were to now think about like what's happening, why these guys are enabling this 1155 to every single AI company and giving them every single thing that they have worked so hard to get to in all of these things. Well, because those AI companies, they may need some method to transmit whatever token they created. Those tokens, each and every one of those tokens that you get with your ERC 1155, if you are an AI company, you may need some mechanism to have them to be transmitted for whatever reason that you want to transmit it peer-to-peer. And those HYPC, they can serve as to be that carrier, which means that it's 0 transaction fees. And when people say, it's like, wait, 0 transaction fees? If there is 0 transaction fees, then there are all kind of attacks that I can think of. On the ledger, yes, not in HYPC. You cannot think of those, because the moment you do any attack, if it is going to be received, you already paid money into it. Otherwise, the other machine is not going to even listen. The only way you can get any machine to listen is that you have some value in it. So which means that if you wanted to do DDoS attack, for example, if each and every one of those packets has a penny, whoever is going to receive the DDoS attack is going to be like, please attack me. You're gonna send me a lot of pennies.
Like pennies from heaven. That's what happens.
Yeah.
Penny falls
So
down.
and that spawns. So when you then think, okay, the hypercycle token is a wrapper for
Mhm.
data or other information. It's an information or a data transfer mechanism, and that's the wrapper. Then people say, well, wait a minute. So what are the fees? You say, well, there's no fees associated with it. You have to wrap that transaction in the hypercycle token. But it's not
Right.
like, because a lot of people were thinking, wait a minute, what happens after 10 divisions and each one of my node licenses now has only one token, but won't the fees destroy the token? And then there's no hypercycle token left. My understanding is you're not burning hypercycle in fees the way you would burn, the way you would melt Ethereum or some of these
Correct.
other assets when you process transactions. This is just not that. This is a different system.
Correct. This HYPC, once it's created in circulation, is there until the eternity. And when I say it, I mean it. It's not like somebody says that, like, if you have this record on Ethereum, is there until the eternity. That is partially true, because it's based on, is it there until eternity, assuming that those ledgers are going to continue have the incentive to be running and running and running and running. But if you actually have this HYPC in that, it's a network packet, it's a 64 kilobyte, you don't really need to have that dependency. You have it, it's there. You can even copy it on a pen and paper, it's there. What it is, it's basically a bunch of cryptographic proofs, and that's what you have. One developer, of course, asked me today as well how to kind of simplify it, which is something that I've said it historically, for those that they are familiar with something that's called sharding. Sharding applies to databases, but it also applies to those ledgers. What does sharding mean? You have one database, but that database keeps growing and growing and growing and growing. But well, at some point, things cannot grow indefinitely, and then so what you do, you shard it to have many different databases doing the work as if they are one. And the simple way to explain this, let's say you're searching on Google, you put the letter A. Imagine as soon as you type the letter A, it's gone to a shard that has everything that starts with A. It's like a server. But if you start with letter B, it would have gone to a different shard. Just think about it this way, that's it. But what happens with sharding, if you keep sharding, there is a point in time that you can no longer shard. Technologically, you can no longer shard. The same way as like how this world is built, you cannot go below the Higgs boson or quark or whatnot, or the atom if you are at the chemistry level. So that point, why is it 64 kilobyte? Well, the network packet that is abundantly available on every single computer across the globe, 64 kilobyte, you're not going to go smaller than that. So that's why you cannot split. You're not going to want to split that shard below that. That is, imagine of that is the shard that has, but it can hold only one value at a time. That value could be $1 trillion, could be penny, could be 0.00001 cent. Those are the containers that are traversing, going back and forth. Those are the HYPC. So that's why it's indestructible. If you have it, it's there. It's a file. Copy it on a pen, piece of paper. That's yours. So that's the power of it.
I have a kind of a rhetorical question. You don't have to answer this for political reasons, but when you look at the way Hypercycle is designed, me and Brandon, we've talked about that a lot of the other projects, even layer ones, look clunky and slow and maybe not necessary. And again, you don't have to comment on this, but I would be curious, when you look at the rest of the cryptocurrency ecosystem, are there projects that you see are doing it right, or does it look like everyone is kind of a step behind as far as their reliance on these protocol-based systems?
I have to give them the same. Well, there's my critiques from one side, but I have to clarify that my critiques is coming from a lover, not a hater. The haters are the ones that they try to look at the cryptocurrency and saying it's like, oh, this whole thing doesn't work. It's this, it's clunky, it's this and that, and they just stop like right there. That's just like hating on it, the same way people hate it perhaps like on cars because they have a lot of like smoke comes out of them in the early days or whatnot, right? But then there's like the lovers that they're like, okay, well, it is like that, but how can we make it better? How can we solve it? So I feel like from that perspective, which is I've been misunderstood many times for criticizing many of them because they hear part of the critiques and their brain shuts down and they think like, oh my God, that's the devil, because they know that what I'm saying is true, but then at the same time, they don't have the answer to it. But if they were to listen to the end of the story, they would have probably realized that he's actually trying to participate in being a solution, you know, as opposed to just like saying, and I truly think that every single one from the crypto world today, if you do ask them, can you convince the CTO of Cisco, CTO of Microsoft, CTO of Google, CTO of IBM that your token is needed? Can you do that? And you're going to receive 100% answers like, no, they cannot. They cannot convince. And that's not because like those guys are politically incentivized, whatnot. No, those guys, they don't like banks the same way you don't like banks because they're paying fees for banks too. So don't give me that. They are they smart? Hell yeah. Those CTOs, they didn't just get to become CTOs because they're just like mom and dad cut them into that position. They are very smart. But instead of just criticizing that and telling the crypto people like, well, you can't convince the deep technologies that your token is needed, perhaps I want to give them the ability to sit in front of any technologies in the world and say like, well, look, this technology evolved through this HYPC thing or whatnot, and here's why you need this token. And they can actually convince any technologist in the world, and that technologist will not be able to have a comeback and say it's like, well, no, you don't need it. You could have done it this way. No, you could not have done it in any other way, and that is the only way it can be done. So that's what we're hoping to enable. Of course, you're still gonna have that somebody's gonna argue, and you still have that 1% who still say until today you don't need emails, snail mail, so works fine. But we're not gonna talk about those. I'm talking about the 99% of the smart ones that if they cannot be convinced, perhaps we need to find ways to enable the convincing.
Final question to round it out, because we've butchered way more time than you probably had available. Will we see a hypercycle, a native hypercycle wallet for the native token?
Yeah, of course. Yeah, of course. Like the actual wallet, the reason why we're doing EVM compatible because it's compatible with all the existing wallets that people they have EVM, but then when you talk about like, well, your EVM is here. EVM stands for Ethereum Virtual Machine, but then you're also doing Python. What? Well, yeah, I mean Python, because 99% of developers out there, they know Python. They don't know EVM. They know Python. So, which means that wallet's going to have to enable many of those. And in fact, we started working with the team in the Singularity Net ecosystem that they're building one wallet for the entire Singularity Net as well. But yeah, I think the wallet is the easiest part of our job when we start talking about the actual hypercycle software. Right now, so far, all we've been talking about is like how you can actually own it and split it and all of this stuff. But when we actually start talking about the software, that's when the real complexity kicks in. And I'm so looking forward to that. So,
Toufii, thank you so much for your time. Brandon, do you have anything you wanted to add? Did we get to most of the guts?
No, I think we'll summarize in our own words without wasting Toufi's time, most of what we can to hopefully, just like you said, read between the lines.
I really love your community and coming in. Thank you so much for having me. And I'm jumping into something new that is happening, which you'll see, it's also somebody from the community is calling it like the hypercycle 2.4, which talks more a little bit like what happens in 24 months with this hypercycle, whatnot. And we want to do it. This one will be more monthly, not weekly. But yeah, there are going to be a lot of stuff like that to have a lot of engagements, to have a lot of questions answered, and that thing starts. So
I can say this. I don't know if it's possible to get any type of extreme flow chart for people to understand the whole hypercycle ecosystem, including the hypershare, the W token, the R token, the native token, a whole flow chart.
I know the marketing team. The marketing team is working on all that.
That would be, oh my gosh.
Yeah.
We could do one, but it wouldn't do justice to probably what you would do with, you know, and I can go through the white paper and kind of pull and extract everything that we need to get that. But you know, that would be really cool to have.
Yeah. It's like explaining what's the internet. So
no big deal.
No, and I've done this before because I have, and you bring up a very good point, because I have these own circles that I run in, and I'm trying to explain hypercycle to them, and it's like starting at day one, because what they've done is they've seen other crypto enterprises and things like that try to run their tokens. Just what Nick alluded to earlier. They've never actually used the native token for anything that's substantial, like the fuel that hypercycle is using it for. And so to explain this thing from day one to, like, for example, my wife, trying to explain things to her, she like just beats me up afterwards, you know. She's like, I'm too confused, and then she like gets mad and runs out of the room. So this is where we stand. We'll get there.
I gotta run.
Toufii, thank you so much. Thank you so much for your time. Thank you, everybody. We will do this again.
Take care.
All right, Brandon, lot to digest. So we will just let people digest for now. Did we have any house cleaning? Was there any house cleaning you wanted to get to?
Yeah, this is something important, because what Nick said was kind of what we are all like with Toufii, is sometimes when I explain things or do things, it's not comprehensible by everybody. So Nick has urged me to continue to iterate and try to make things simpler and simpler and simpler, right? So, and I get that 100%. And sometimes in my tech tip videos, I go through these things, and just because I know how to do them, I expect other people to kind of know how to do these things too, but that's just not the case, and we get that. So we've made a new page here on the shop. It's actually in the shop where you can check your wallets. And a lot of people said, so I'm going to walk through this really quickly, said they don't know how to use the Control F function on the spray sheet. I didn't explain that very clearly. So I'm just going to go show you guys how to do that. If you want to do a wallet check, you click on that. And then when I push Control F on my keyboard, it pops up this window up here. So I can find anything in the sheet. So if I'm searching for this wallet here, I can find it, and it just finds it like that, and then I can go to the next one. Oh, there's my next purchase, or whatever it is, you know. So that actually, ironically, anyway, I won't say what happened there, but that was funny. Anyway, so that's how you find that. That was actually the person that asked me like what Control F was. Was that weird? That was just randomly, and I just know that because I'm like doing this stuff all day long. Anyway, that was funny. So
they can find that when you go to the shop. That button is in the shop.
Yeah, so if you just go to the shop page, it's actually the top one now. So you can go to this, find this button here. You can go in here and you can see this whole page on how to check your wallet and stuff. I also added it to the home page. It's also in the member dashboard, and then it's also in the hypercycle node page. So that's in more places, so that hopefully you guys know where to go. The master sheet, a lot of people are like, oh, the master sheet, you know, I haven't checked. I'm like, I urge you to go check that just to make sure everything's correct, because that sheet's what we're going to use to do the splitting. So we're going to take that sheet. We're going to take all those wallets and we're going to push them in. What I've sent you guys is just placeholders, and we're not going to really use that. That's just for you guys to have as placeholders. But I'm going to use this master sheet, and I'm going to take this over. So priority of what is actual realness is that master sheet. And so please check that, because that's like huge. And along with that, Nick, I mean, I think you did mention this, but we did add some more tokens to the node market. And this is a big deal only because we're still, and you know, and Nick and I, the market is live. Everybody's using it. But once we get things 100% functional, this is going to be so key for us to help take to these communities. And we have not even done this yet. This is like, oh my God, this is like a sleeping giant is the way I figure it. A sleeping giant to where this marketplace is going to blow up. as soon as we start taking this out to these communities, hey, we have an OTC exchange ready to go. You don't have to pay anything. Your community can use this instantly right now and get these OTC prices. We've done this. This is so cool. And this is like a sleeping giant node market. And it's like, guys, if you even knew, I've talked to like my dev team and a lot of the people that I work with behind the scenes on this has equated this to other startups that have done similar things, and ours is blowing their timeline out of the water in terms of revenue, in terms of where we are today versus where we started, in every other term. So this stuff is like really exciting for both Nick and I and everything that we're doing.
Let me tackle a few quick questions. One, the treat or treat that is still in effect. It runs till the end of Halloween tomorrow night. So all day today, all day tomorrow until midnight, and then back to the normal goodies. Okay, so that's the treat or treat thing, which for anybody who doesn't know, it's very easy. If you get 2 node NFTs, ours, right, which is a revenue share NFT, as well as getting access to token launches and stuff. I have a meeting with Twins today, by the way, Twin Protocol, about the allocation for the node token holders on day 1. But anyway, you get 2. If you get 2 of our NFTs, we give you 2, like out of our pocket. We pay for them 2 hypercycle node licenses, a 2 node. So if you get 10, you get 10. If you get 100, you get 100. There's no limit to it. It is what it is. But that runs out tomorrow night, midnight or whatever. We'll do midnight Pacific. That way you East Coasters get 3 extra hours.
Whoa.
Yeah.
That's
okay.
Bonus time.
On the native token, when you're asking the native hypercycle token is a different token. That's the actual token that's used in the ecosystem. The Binance and the Ethereum tokens that you see now on exchanges, and as well as the Ethereum token that we have, that's a placeholder token. And that is only until you use their software, which they're going to release, that allows you to merge the licenses and the tokens together. At that point, the placeholder token is no longer in use. What's used inside the compute ecosystem is not that. It is the native token. And so, yes, there will be a native token wallet. Okay, there's that. Now, and this is a Brandon question. Can you add Node Market to where you can buy on the portfolio page? Probably we should do that.
A massive oversight if it's not already there. But yeah, it's obvious we can do that. Well, there. Not so much as a question as get this the bleep done type of thing. Got it.
Yeah. Can you buy Node NFT without being a DI? Yes. You just go click it. One thing that anybody that catches the tail end of this episode, I hope people understand, we're not a closed circuit network. We're not, you get secret treatment and everyone else gets, we don't do all that bull crap. The whole point of this is to give tools to investors in the digital space to do what they need to do without middlemen, right? And so instead of middlemen, we put middleware software, right? So we just replaced the fat, rich white dudes with code. And that's just kind of the way we do it. We build the stuff that we need to do what we do. And that benefits other investors because likely if you're in this space, these tools can help you. So that's this whole thing. We would have built Node Market for Brandon and I probably and the private clients just for like the 60 of us anyway. We thought, well, I mean, might as well roll it out. So that's why we do this.
Hey, real quick here. This is Jeff's question. So, Jeff, this is good. Brandon, I purchased 2 Node Market NFTs. I have not yet received the 2 free node license. Okay, so this is the situation. Let's go check our wallets. I happen to find Jeff's wallet here really quickly. So I can go through and I can see all Jeff's purchases. I go through to the very bottom, the last one, and I can see the 2 node licenses that are free because this is the last one. He knows he didn't purchase this. And he can check that they're already on the spreadsheet, which is really cool. So you have received the 2 free node licenses. You can also check your hidden folder and see that those are dropped. So this is kind of one of those things like, I can't like, if you guys, I get like probably a bunch of messages a day. I would really urge you guys to go check this sheet first before messaging me, because then I have to go check it because I want to help you guys and I want to see this. But please, like I've made this sheet like as accessible as possible.
Help us help you.
There's
doing
two
the
videos here
research.
too. I've even linked them on the sheet, so you don't have to go find them. How to find hidden NFTs, how to find my OpenSea NFTs. Like I've linked these videos here. But like all this stuff, I put notes here. Like this is like, please just read these notes and then just please follow these instructions here because it helps me help you. Oh, Jeff, there it is. See, yeah, this is what we're searching right now. This is live. We're live. So I searched, I pasted his wallet here. I can go, I can see that he's purchased 5 times. And then the 6th one was the node license NFTs that I dropped to his wallet last night. And I know that I dropped them because I checked my sheet. Anyway, so we're good to go there. Should be good.
Okay. Well, Frederick, 1 is not 2. 1 wants to be 2.
Oh, what's the reasoning behind this? 1. So as you know, the smallest binary that we have done bundles in is 2. So you have to do 2. That's the only reason.
It's got to be 2. It is this way because it's this way. If it was a different way, we just said that. All right. Your MetaMask will not allow you to unhide.
How many times we told you guys not to use MetaMask?
Don't use MetaMask.
Okay, so MetaMask is really bad at viewing the NFTs, and a lot of people just because they don't see 1155s and stuff like that. So it's like really tough on MetaMask. So we've told you guys. That's why I have the videos like very I've made these tech tip videos at the very top to use OpenSea. OpenSea is the best way to view all NFTs. It just really is. I mean, that's what they built their platform for. They built their platform, and if you haven't seen my overview video on MetaMask and what MetaMask is, go watch that, please. Please go watch that. How MetaMask is used and how it interacts with OpenSea. OpenSea's built their whole platform to view NFTs on the blockchain. And so obviously they're the best at it. MetaMask has not built their platform to view NFTs. They've built their platform to change tokens, to trade tokens, to hold tokens, to do all that kind of stuff.
They're working on it.
Secondarily, they've tried to integrate NFTs, but they just haven't done it all the way.
And they're working on it with their new rollout of MetaMask Portfolio, which is a different way. And they get it, right? Like they're not dumb. They understand.
Oh, no. Yeah. They're in the space.
They get it.
They have the most powerful hot wallet it exists. So they know what they're doing.
All right. Let's wrap it up. Let's call it a day. I know we didn't go behind the wall. I thought this interview, it worked out great that we got to have Toufii live because it's one thing to kind of see This Week in Hypercycle. It's another to be able to kind of in real time engage. So I hope you guys enjoyed that. We'll try to do that more. It's a lot of fun. And plus it's like better than listening to me and Brandon argue about his obviously pink shirt. See that right there on the screen? That's red. That's red, right, Brandon?
Yes. Yeah, that's red. And then I put a note just for Celine, and make sure I spell that right. Celine. This is the video you need to watch. Here, I'll put arrows for you. There you go.
And on that note, let's call it a day. Stay in school. Don't do drugs. Don't do anything my poor and solvent drunk, strung on meth grandmother wouldn't do. I think tomorrow on office hours, I'm going to pivot a little bit and I'm going to go macro. We're going to talk about the Phillips curve and how stupid and bullshitty it is. Anyway, there, I got my curse word in. I feel good. All right.
We almost went an hour. And
I didn't want to. That wasn't my intention.
All
right, we're out.
We're out.
Tired of all the uneducated noise you're getting from the droves of YOLO meme coin peddling douchebag gurus out there trying to use you as their exit liquidity? Would you rather learn a competent university-level set of skills that will guide you in managing and investing for the rest of your life? Join us 3 days a week at Digital Investor. Develop your knowledge of game theory, cognitive bias, macroeconomics, monetary theory, investment theory, psychology of the crowds, and more. For more info on Digital Investor and how it can help you, reach out at nickblacknext.com.